till the microphone to reach you before asking a question. And when you do ask the question, please provide your name and media affiliation. If you're joining us on Zoom, please use the raise hand function for questions. We're going to address questions in the room first and then take questions from Zoom if time permits. Now joining us are members of the Ole Miss Rebels, head coach Mike Bianco, student athletes Hunter Elliott, Will Furness, and Taylor Rabe. Gentlemen, congratulations on a wonderful season and reaching Omaha. Coach, we'll start with an opening statement from you.
Well, I think like everybody that you get to this point, you're just, excited to be here. It's obviously a long journey for every, program to make it to Omaha, the pinnacle of college baseball. But then once you get here, travel and all the media obligations that they just went through, now I know they're excited and ready to play baseball.
We'll open it up to questions for the student athletes.
Hey, Will, Sam Hutchins with the Clarion Ledger. I was wondering, have you gotten a chance to kind of connect with your dad about finally making it to Omaha and what's that like? And if you don't mind speaking a little to what he's meant to you in this process.
Yeah, I got to see him for a little bit after we won in Auburn, but he got here yesterday. I'm about to go eat lunch with him now, and just going to have him walk me through what it feels like to be here, how to handle the excitement with the nerves and everything. And then, he's done everything for me to get me here, and he's the reason that I got to even come to Ole Miss. So, I owe everything to him.
Jake Thompson, Ole Miss Spirit on 300. What were the emotions for you taking the field yesterday, and then obviously today, knowing what those were like 4 years ago when you walked off this field?
Yeah, I've told a couple people that I feel like you forget a little bit about it. It's been a while. I've been through some ups and downs since then. It feels like ages ago almost that we were here. So you forget a little bit, and I don't know. It was just good. It was just a lot of excitement to be back. Really love this group of guys. Really happy for everybody that's getting to experience it. And yeah, it brought back a lot of good memories.
Chase Parham, 24/7 Sports. Taylor, first season on the whole that hasn't been involved with injury or affected you in some way. What's this rise just sort of been like as your role has increased throughout the season?
It's been fun. I knew coming into the year I was going to be able to do everything that we wanted to do in the off season and in the preseason and the fall to get ready for the season. And so I knew I was going to get an opportunity to have a big impact, and so I was glad that I was able to do that and help us win.
Joe Menzer, ESPN, SEC Network. Could you guys just kind of talk to the overall strength, obviously, of the SEC and getting 5 teams in this thing? And are you glad to be on the other side of the bracket from the All-SEC to get a little break from seeing all the same old people?
Yeah, we could talk a little bit about it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's why there's so many teams here is because the league and the schedule that you have is so brutal, is so tough. The road environments you go to, man, they're hard. There's no off weeks. It doesn't matter who you're playing in the league, 1 through 16. They'll walk into your stadium and beat you. And I think that's exactly like I said. That's why there's so many teams here is because it prepares you for postseason. I'm not going to say I'm glad to be on the other side of it. North Carolina, Troy, West Virginia, incredible ball clubs, had incredible seasons, so I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, no, for sure, what he said.
Mark Ireland, Just Baseball Media. Hunter, any wisdom you've imparted upon these guys about what it takes to be here and pitch at the big moments? And then, Taylor, anything that you've taken from Hunter this season to kind of build yourself up and be ready for the postseason?
Man, no real getting the guys together and letting them know, hey, I've been here, so this is what you need to do. That's not really what I've done. They've asked some questions, and it's more, man, just having success here is about doing what we did in Lincoln, doing what we did in Auburn, just winning the big parts of the game, doing the same thing, and I think that's why. Maybe sometimes people come here and aren't the same is because they they try to play a little different. It's a bigger stage or whatever. But no, it's doing what we've done all year. That's why we're here. So we're good enough to have success here.
Yeah, I think when I first came here as a freshman and met Hunter, I kind of looked to him for the answers to, how to get to Omaha. And I don't necessarily think that you learn that by coming here, but I think that kind of like he said that one thing that I've kind of learned from him and is that a trait of really good teams is that you don't really, win or lose if you get swept, or if you sweep someone, you don't, try to change everything up or do anything very different. You just stick with your process and continue to try to improve the things that you need to improve and be the same guys every day. And so I think that's something that Hunter's kind of taught me and that I look for in the teams. And, when we had some struggles this year, I just tried to keep the morale. Like, we don't need to panic. Like, we're still a really good team. And especially in our league, like, people get beat every week. And that's not a reason to start to panic.
Noah Beanick, 11.7. Question for Will. Ole Miss has faced one of the tougher paths in the NCAA tournament to get to Omaha, going to the Lincoln Regional, playing Nebraska against their home crowd, and then playing in Auburn against two record-breaking crowds for the Tigers there. Offensively, it feels like you guys have added a little bit more of an element to gain leads early, and it's not necessarily using the long ball because you guys know that you can hit the ball very far, but talk about, adding a little bit more contact to that lineup lately.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of more – I think hitters elevate their game in the postseason, not necessarily trying to, but just knowing that, like, forgetting and really just moving past bad ABs is huge for a lot of hitters, and it's really hard for people to do that. In the postseason, you kind of have to do that because for every AB could be the one that breaks the offense through and helps you win the game. So really just a lot of people battling every pitch. We've just really wanted to get it done for our teammates, and we've gotten some runs in at the right times. Whenever I think we have a lot of runs scored with 2 outs, and runners in scoring position. Seems like we always are finding the big hit, which is. It's really big especially for postseason, and the way these guys are throwing it. It's really you don't really have to score too much to win, which we want to score 20 runs every game and not make it a sweat. But while we're waiting to do that, we're just going to try to make sure we win every pitch and try to get runners in when they're getting a scoring position.
Any more questions for the student athletes? Take one from the back first. Come up front.
Hunter, you obviously were here in 2022. Are there any similarities between this group and the group that won it back then?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more similarities off the field. Obviously, on the field, we got great pitchers, we got great hitters, things like that. But I think, man, this group is one that's stuck together. This group's one that's a little older. We have a lot of experience, good, bad. Both types of experience. And the main thing, man, this group really loves to be together. We love hanging out. We love it's kind of been a thing this whatever postseason, whatever, but man, it's real. We like the bus rides because we just get to spend time with our teammates, We don't want to play the last game together, So that's a trait that I think is very similar.
Chase Farm, 24/7 Sports. Hunter, kind of the same question I asked Taylor about him a little bit. What have you seen in his growth and what's allowed him to excel to the level he has this season?
Yeah, the obvious stuff. He's made huge strides on the field. He's developed into one of the elite stuff arms in the country. But kind of outside of that, man, I think his competitiveness has elevated. The thing that, I don't know, maybe proud or whatever, the thing that I'm most impressed with him is, man, he seems to really find a way to own the big moment now. It seems like he's starting to understand that, man, jams are just part of it. You're going to get yourself into jams. But, man, he's learning how to make the big pitch, and that's awesome. That's something that takes some guys a long time. But, man, he's made some big pitches this year.
Doug Kyle, College Baseball Central. Hunter, there's a similarity between this year and 22 in that you won your way here on the road, yet at home you're known for big crowds and big atmosphere and everything. So is there a difference in the way that you and the team motivate yourself when you're at home versus on the road?
I don't know about motivating ourselves. I think we're a very good road baseball team. I think the road experience we've gained this year, playing in Austin, playing in Fayetteville, playing in Gainesville, I could go on in the SEC. I think that's what's prepared us. This team really enjoys kind of quieting road crowds. I think this team kind of enjoys the big moment, kind of enjoys the rise of the opposing fans, and then we really like quieting them. I'm not sure. I wouldn't think that it's going to be like that because Ole Miss fans travel pretty well here. But yeah, I mean, no difference. We enjoy playing on the road, but man, we love playing in front of our home fans too.
Any more questions for the student athletes? Hunter, Will, Taylor, thanks for your time. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
Short guy.
Thank you, guys. Okay, we'll now open it up to questions for Coach. As a reminder, state your name and media affiliation when you receive the microphone.
Mark Garland, Just Baseball Media. Coach, this team all season has felt like they just don't shy away from the big moment, really mentally tough. Is there something that you and your staff do to kind of get these guys prepared for these big situations? Feels like you guys have just stepped up in the big ones this year.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a secret sauce to that, and certainly don't want to take credit away from them. But I think, one of the things that's been echoed a lot recently, but, all coaches, you talk about culture, chemistry, whatever phrase you want to use. But when you have those teams that are close-knit, those teams that play for one another, those teams that have great leadership, they seem to be better in the bigger moments. And so I think it has more to do with that. The other thing is, maybe a mantra, if you will. Midway through the season, we one of the pregame talks was about handling hard. Not just in baseball or in sports, but in life in general. There's hard times. There's things. There's difficult roads, and most people, I think, the mindset is, I need to get through this hard time so it'll be easier. And that really doesn't happen. The hard times don't stop. In sports or in life, you just learn to handle hard better. And so, we kind of took that on about midway through the season. People talked about our schedule. People talked about our SEC schedule. And we talked about handling hard well. And so it was kind of fitting that when we at the end didn't finish well enough to host, and we were going to go on the road, that not only would we go to a place like Nebraska and great crowd, but then we'd have to play a really good opponent in Arizona State, and our guys handled it, and their reward was to go to Auburn. And play in front of two other, record-breaking crowds against, one of the best teams in the country. So this team's handled hard well.
Jake Thompson, Ole Miss Spirit on 3. Mike, have you and Joel talked about who you'll throw out there tomorrow night?
Yeah, well, we're going to throw Taylor Rabe.
Noah Binick, 11.7. Coach, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride for the Ole Miss baseball program since 2022 in the national championship. Obviously, a couple years ago in a different spot. But the last 2 years, last year you hosted a regional, and this year you're in Omaha. Talk about the approach and process of just wanting to get old and stay old, because I feel like that's been, a little bit of an emphasis of yours in this program.
Well, we're believers, and I think most coaches, would admit that not just in college baseball, but certainly in our league, old wins. Older teams seem to have success. They're more mature, to the earlier question of handling the tough moments. And so you look up again, and you got veterans like Will and Hunter. Taylor, even though, he's, eligibility-wise, a sophomore. I mean, he's been here for 3 years, and when you're old, you've been through the adversity. You've been punched in the, you've been punched in the mouth, and hopefully you've been able to get back up and continue to, to fight and have success. And so, some of those teams, I think when we came back from the 22, that team, we lost a lot of old players, and it was tough to get that back. But certainly this team is older and much better for it.
Obviously, the stats with Taylor kind of speak for themselves. So, what can you say about the job he's done mentally to make him a good fit to start Game 1 in Omaha?
I think what Hunter said. There's been a lot written about him over the last 3 weeks, and well-deserved. I mean, he's a kid that just continues to get better, it seems, week in and week out. He was really good at the beginning of the season, as you know. Whatever role we put him in, he seemed to flourish in. If it was just a bullpen piece to the closer, to all of a sudden, a weekend starter. But if you watched him and what Hunter said, the great ones, learn how to make pitches and get off the field. He's learned that. You've watched him, especially over the last few weeks. There's times in those games where this is where the game's likely to be won and lost, and he's been able to make those pitches, and that's what the great ones do.
Noah Darling, College Baseball Central coach. A lot is being made of Hunter Elliott's national championship experience, and he said that there's maybe not a moment where he steps aside and say, "All right, guys, here's how we do it." But what's the value of Dom Decker's experience here last year?
I think both. Both those guys. And yeah, I don't think it's a team meeting in the locker room where they pulled them together and said, okay, here's the roadmap, to navigate through Omaha. But I think, and I would imagine, as a player, you're looking at Dom, you're looking at Hunter, and that's what leadership is a lot of times, just how they respond in those moments, what they're doing, and so yes, a lot's been said about Hunter, and obviously it should be. He's a national champion. He's the last remaining guy off that team, but Dom was here last year, and so I think both guys have shown tremendous leadership, not just in the last week or so, but throughout the season.
Joe Menzer, SEC Network. Could you talk a little bit about the strength of the SEC? Were you surprised 5 teams made it? That's a new record. And then also, could you talk about what challenges North Carolina presents?
Yeah. First, it probably sounds pompous, but I'm not surprised. We were here in 22. There was 4 teams, and 2 of the other 4 that weren't SEC teams were Texas and Oklahoma. And so in our league, as Hunter said, and he's right, and we've said it over and over, nothing prepares you more for postseason than the Southeastern Conference. Great teams that play in great environments. And we say it all the time, if you don't play well in our league, you lose. I mean, it's as simple as that. You have to play well. It doesn't matter who you're playing, where you're playing. If you don't play well, you lose in our league. And so that's the two-edged sword, right? It's very unforgiving through the 30 games. But what that 30 games does for you is it weathers you. It thickens your skin, and it prepares you for postseason. As far as North Carolina, the question I think was to Hunter earlier, are you happy that you're on the side that doesn't have all the SEC teams? And a lot as coaches we joke that, hey, we can't wait to play somebody outside of our league, but playing a team that's 72-2 in North Carolina, I don't know if it's a great reward, and obviously sarcasm there, but man, they're good, and they've had a tremendous year. I think they lost their first weekend in conference play, and then ran through another really good conference 9 weeks in a row. And there is no weakness. They pitch at a high level. They hit at a high level. They're tough to strike out. They steal bases. They do everything well, and they're experienced as well. So. Mm-hmm.
Noah Binick, 11.7. Coach, when I asked Will the question, I used the term contact, and that's probably not the correct way to phrase it. It probably should be timely hitting. And I think when you look at the phrase timely hitting, who embodied that most, in your super regional was Braden Randall. You inserted him into the outfield, and he came up with a couple of big plate appearances in that super. Outfield's more spacious here in Omaha at Charles Schwab Field. Do you plan on continuing to do that throughout the College World Series?
It's certainly an option. I don't know if I'm ready to say that or release a starting lineup, but Braden, that didn't happen just in the Super Regional. He'd been taking fly balls for a couple weeks out there, really since we left Hoover in the SEC tournament, where he had we only played one game there, but he probably had 3 or 4 really good at bats, better than anybody on the team. And a lot of times when you get to that bottom of the lineup, you're looking for that one guy to kind of give you a little bit of a spark, and certainly the infielders moving to the outfielders, a shortstop that's athletic, can run, and so you feel comfortable that he can play it defensively, and it adds another piece to your offense. And to continue on with the timely hit, that's one of the things that I think has been different for this offense, at least the last 3 weeks, but really the second half of the season, where when we were struggling offensively, it was more the bottom half of the lineup, and that seems obvious, but we were really weak. And then when Fed got hot, when we got into conference play, and then you add in Pano, and then Foley has swung the bat really terrific the last month. And then when you add in, a Randall, a big home run by Reuter, you talk about timely hits, in a game 1 of the Super Regional, big home run to center field. The bottom of the lineup has been a lot more productive the last month of the season.
I saw after Auburn, you posted a photo with Eddie and Will, or I think Eddie posted it. But just what's your kind of relationship with Eddie Furness like, and how cool is it to have 2 Furnaces in the World Series after all this time? Yeah,
really cool. And Eddie, as his son just said, the numbers speak for himself. A legend at LSU, and national champion, a couple-time national champion. Numbers retired. I think he's a college baseball Hall of Famer. All the accolades, and not just at LSU, but in the Southeastern Conference, and that says a lot. I had the great opportunity of coaching him a couple of years at LSU, and so we had a prior relationship, obviously, before Will got here. But more specifically to your question, it's really neat, I think, for parents, at this time, to watch your son have success, at the highest level of, amateur baseball. But I think really cool for Eddie to be a parent, and Crystal, his mom, to see that and watch, their son realize, those dreams that Eddie did. And, to see him after that picture was taken right after the press conference of the Super Regional. I didn't realize it, but Eddie, gave me a hug, and he said, we went to Omaha in '96, and this is 30 years later, exactly, that, my son's getting to go, and we took that picture, and I took that, he sent it to me, and I sent it to Coach Burtman, and just a cool moment. I think parents have those moments, but when you're a guy like Eddie Furness, it's really neat for somebody to step away from being the star and all the accolades that I've already mentioned, and to sit back and just be a proud dad. I think that's really neat.
Matt DiGregorio, WLOX in Biloxi. Coach Hunter spoke on this, but from your perspective, what similarities does this group have to that 2022 group?
Different in a way where that team was the proverbial last team in. This team knew they were going, to postseason all along. Different that team played really well, 22 at the very beginning of the season. We were ranked number 1 to start conference play for a couple weeks, and then for about 4 to 6 weeks in a row, 4 to 6 weeks, we lost and fell to 7-14, and the rest of the story. This team, never got to that elite level during the season. We played well, but it was a hard road. As we said, the schedule was just brutal through the 10 weeks. I don't know. You hear all the time it was the most difficult. I'll let you guys decide that, but certainly, it was a tough road through those 10 weeks of conference. But they handled it. The similarities is the leadership, the oldness, that we talked about, the veteran leadership, how much they cared about one another, how much fun they have with one another. That means so much. And that's the stuff that's behind, the curtain that you guys don't get to see. Most of the time we don't know that, right? You don't know how close-knit a group's going to be. You don't know the leadership until you get going into the season and you have the adversity and those types of things. But I would think that's the biggest similarities is, that was a neat team to be around, how much they cared for one another, how much they liked being with one another. And then you had guys like Elko and Bench and Graham that were great leaders on that team. And here you look at, Utermark, who's like Elko 2.0. And then you got a veteran presence in Elliott and Furness, a guy that's been here for 4 years. And so those are the similarities. I think that they were great teams with great leadership.
We'll take one more question.
Noah Beanick, 11.7 coach. It was previously mentioned, like post-game pictures. One surfaced of you wearing the Stormtrooper helmet. This team hits a lot of home runs, and that's the celebration that'll be across ESPN networks. What's the story behind it that you know of, and about the offense's approach? Just a word on that.
Right. I'll connect the dots a little bit. I'm probably not the best one to answer it. We're in Gainesville. I don't know which day, but I'm going to guess it was day 2, and it was Easter weekend, so it was probably Friday. Went into one of the meeting rooms, and there's a Stormtrooper helmet on one of the tables. I like Star Wars, but I only saw the first one and a little bit of the second one. That's a whole other story. My family rags me all the time. But I know exactly what the helmet is. And I said, like, why is that here? And somebody said something like, hey, we're thinking about making that. And they were kind of, I think, testing me, like, would you allow it? We're trying to, maybe, and we were struggling at the time, especially offensively. Could that be, maybe our home run celebration, put the helmet on? And I think I surprised him by saying, sure, heck yeah, that's neat. And then when I said that and knew what was going to happen, the first thing that I went to was John Corello, our strength coach. You need to make sure like you're in control of that helmet because of the NCAA rules. You don't want that coming out of the dugout, and next thing you know, you get Judd Utermark to get kicked out of the game or something like that. And so Corello, our strength coach, is the one that's in charge of it, the only one that touches it, the one that hands it to the guy, and make sure that it it stays in the dugout. But I think Judd's home run in Game 3 on Saturday night to tie it up, where we eventually win, that Game 3 and eventually beat Florida 2 out of 3 in Gainesville. Judd's home run was the first one to put the Stormtrooper helmet on. Was there something else? There was another part of that question. You did really good answering. All right, good.
And with that, that'll conclude our press
Thanks,
conference,
guys.
Coach. We appreciate your time and good luck tomorrow.